You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Welcome, everybody. Episode number 25 of the Battered MLS Fans podcast. I am your host, Daniel Granada, and alongside me, I got two other Battered fans because their teams did not win the MLS Cup. Although we do have Eric, which your team did win a trophy this year. How you doing, Eric?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying that very minor trophy won, but a trophy nonetheless, and a trophy we didn't have.
There you go. And then Tommy still living high off of his upset against Inter Miami, no?
Yeah, and we stole your general manager. It's all coming up Millhouse. It's all coming up Millhouse, baby.
Got to
take
record.
Although I wish we would have kept Chris Henderson. I don't know if I would say that you guys took him. I kind of felt like Inter Miami's front office didn't want him anymore for whatever reason. But, that's a story for another day. We're here talking
You took
playoffs.
our second-round pick. We took second-round pick. Get out of here.
Okay, real quick. Eric, do you care about the draft picks at all? Because Philadelphia...
It's the super draft.
They shipped off the next 50 years worth of draft picks to, I forget, like Colorado or something. Do you care?
It's not NFL or
No.
NFL draft picks mean something. Like basketball, they kind of mean something too, although pockets mean more there. MLS, it's like this, it's great for, there's a lot of solid journeyman league guys that will come out of that. But when we're talking superstars, soccer superstars, they're gone by 18 years old, when you're looking at guys 22, even 21 out of college, that's great. That's where you're going to find your MLS veterans are going to play in the league for, 10 years, hopefully, if they're lucky. And that's that. But this whole ceremony over it it's kind of silly. I think it really doesn't mean much.
I feel bad.
Or at least just do the first round, right?
Yeah, because I don't want to poo-poo on these kids, right? Because they're coming out, they played well in college, but in reality, if you are somebody that could possibly be a star, you probably are in the academy of some team before you get to college, right? Like Kremaki, for example, with Inter Miami. He went straight to the academy, and now he's playing for the upper level. Now, Yannick Bright, stud from Inter Miami, came out of the draft, but he came from Italy. Kind of didn't make it with, I forgot what team it was that he didn't make it with over there. Came over here, played college ball, draft. But for the most part, I don't think it's that big a deal. And I'm not sure how I got sidetracked with the draft. Back to the playoffs. Playoff football. So, it's been a lot of conversation since the playoffs started, especially after Inter Miami got knocked out here in Miami, about the playoffs are pointless. It should just be the supporter shield. Let's start there. Just real quick, I kind of want to get what you two are thinking. Would you guys rather just award the supporter shield winner? I'll tell you, I prefer the playoffs. I love the playoffs. That's just me. Maybe that's my American bias. I love the playoffs. Eric, playoffs or supporter shield?
Oh, one, it's playoffs. It's always going to be the playoffs. It doesn't really matter what any of us think about it. In 2019, we found out our second year when we won the supporter shield. Hey, guys, we won the supporter shield. And Seattle Sounders were guys dude, shove the supporter shield straight up your rear end because it really doesn't mean a thing. It's the cup. The cup gives you the star. That's it. The supporter shield is good. It's a great trophy. And I've always said the best double you can get is a support. You can't get the double without a supporter shield. So I really think that that's really where it's at with this. But the supporter shield on its own, it's great to have it once, but you're not putting a star for that.
Okay, but if they told you, okay, we're gonna scrap the playoffs, and if you win the supporter shield, you get a star. Would you rather that?
No.
I'm with you, Tommy.
All right, Solana, I know you're watching right now because I've seen all his tweets over and over and over. It's America. You need playoffs, right? This is how you're supposed to drive ratings. I don't know if we'll talk about ratings here of what MLS Cup was.
Well, we can.
But but that's the thing is teams will get knocked out early, right? When you have a dominant team like a Miami. I don't remember what day you guys won Supporter Shield.
October 2nd or October 3rd, something like that. It was the first couple days of October when we beat Columbus.
Okay. So you had weeks left in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kills it for people. For me,
I
watch the Premier League. I don't watch it every single week, but I root for Manchester United, suck it city. And it's cool to, watch it, but once they're knocked out, what's the point, right? There's no relegation here. So that's nothing to get excited about. But it's the playoffs. It's giving, especially since they've added like what percentage of the league? Like 65% of the league makes it into the playoffs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it gives everyone hope, right? And most of the time there's going to be upsets, but there's random times where the New York Giants are going to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and it's going to be the coolest thing ever, right? And like the whole world, right? And look, I know there's a lot of Miami fans in here, right? But like Miami became the villain, right? Like it was cool for like the first couple months, and then they became the villain. So all of a sudden, Atlanta United, who was normally a villain because they spend so much money, became the hero in this, right? Everybody, the country was rooting for Atlanta United to knock out Miami, and that was just a cool moment that you could say it wouldn't have been produced if there wasn't playoffs.
I agree, and I think it keeps the fan bases engaged when you know that you could just sneak in. And if hypothetically you have a big injury for a month or two, and because of that you fall in the standings, well, if they're healthy when we get to the playoffs, you still have a chance. Your season isn't over. That's why I love the playoffs. So the three of us pro playoffs. But here's where the question is: what would we change about the playoffs? I do think 18 teams is way too much. Once San Diego starts, it's going to be 60% of the league. This past year was 62% of the league. So 60% of the league making the playoffs is way too much. I do think that it should be shortened. Eric, I know that you've been watching the MLS forever. Is there at any point, was there a format that you liked, that you thought this works, let's keep it this way? Because I know there was a couple times they had bye weeks and stuff like that.
Yeah. Although I push back, I haven't been watching forever, basically since 2018 and our inaugural season.
I could have sworn you told me it was longer. Okay, 2018, that's good enough.
I dabbled a bit here and there, but I never really got into it until that first day against Seattle at our home opener. That's when I really fell in love with it. But I will say, going back to this, and I've given a lot of thought, as I'm sure a lot of us have, I really like the single elimination format the best. And since we do have this playoff format, the season has to mean something into that, and that's the seeding. Like, I think they should be single elimination games, the way a format was in 2022 and earlier, where the first place teams in each conference get a bye, and then everybody else plays and they come in the next round. They would basically get like a week and a half. The other thing they did is all the games were 3 or 4 days apart. Until the final, they had a week off before that. But what they would do is basically when lower seed teams would play and the winner would go into a higher bracket, they would get like one less day of rest than the team they were going against. So the higher seed team would usually get a 4-day off, and the lower seed would get a 3-day off plus travel. And I think this really made the seeding really critical for making the runs.
Before I get to you, Tommy, you know what? I agreed with you, Eric, and I rarely give Solana credit because I like to go back and forth with him. I like to argue with him.
Never do that.
But he told me something. I was talking to him off the show. We were just talking about this, and he said something that made sense to me. And I got to give him credit because I am all for single elimination. But he said he doesn't like single elimination in this sport because if you are an inferior team, you can strategize your way into a victory, even though you are an inferior team. And I never really considered that. And I understand that you could do that throughout a playoff series, but it's harder to do it for more than one game. But for one game, you could literally play a low block and just hope for a counter or a penalty kick or to go to penalty kicks. And it does, I think, almost take away some of the fun of the playoffs when you can just buckle down and try to beat a better team that way. So I'm more for the home and away 2-leg aggregate, which I know what you're going to tell me, Eric, because I've heard you say, and we're going to get to that in a second. But that's where I would go. Tommy, what do you think?
I do enjoy that playoff format, right? The aggregate's fun, but unfortunately, Americans do not like the math, right? And you try to explain this to people. Look, I'm young to hardcore watching soccer, right? I'll admit to that. So when Atlanta United came in, the first year that they won, watching, the series here, it was fun, right? But I had to explain it to people, right, that were watching it with me, and they're just like, "This is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard." And unfortunately,
aggregate score?
Yeah, you have to pander to the masses, right? And I'm sorry, you don't pander to the masses. You pander to the people that don't watch it, so that they could get interested, right? You could be like, "Oh yeah, they're winning right now, 2-1, but it's actually 4-2." Like that's what it is. That's what I was gonna say with the single elimination. You saw that. I remember there was an Orlando playoff game. I forget who they were playing against, but that was the thing. They were the inferior team, and they just sat back, and it got all the way to penalties, right? And once you get to penalties, it's a 50% chance. I don't care who the goalie is. It's of luck, right? And that's what people were doing. So my thought was why they changed it to the new format a little bit here is because you'd seen it a little bit more often is that you want to get the better team through, right? Because usually the better teams, right, are more popular, more ratings, and you want to make sure that you have the best final possible. So they went in and added this because it's very unlikely in a a 2-game series, or I'm sorry, a 3-game series, is that the worst team or the worst team is going to come out triumphant. And we learned that doesn't always happen, but most of the time it does. Yeah. I think last year I think there might have been one upset in the first round, maybe just one. But this year, I mean, we had a few, but I mean, you don't see it as often, and you just make sure that your better teams get through because you want the LA and Miami matchup, right? Not whatever LA.
Yeah. LA and
There's
Miami.
Only one team in LA.
It's right. The other one plays in Carson. That's right.
Yes,
the second
exactly.
one.
Thank you.
And I didn't know that until I started talking to Eric a couple months ago. Just real quick, Tommy, everybody's bringing up the fact in the chat that usually when there's an aggregate score, they put the aggregate score up on the TV also.
They do. I understand that. It's on the screen. They're 100% right. But again, explain it to a casual person, right, that does not watch soccer. It'll blow their minds that's what there's no other sport that's like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. Now, and then to what I said, I gave Solana some credit, right? Because I do understand that single elimination, that does suck in that aspect. But when I heard Eric give his opinion about this, Eric, why don't you like single the 2-leg aggregate?
Because it doesn't give enough of an advantage to the higher seeded team. I think a double elimination makes sense for the CONCACAF Champions League and like tournaments you qualify into, but there's no seeding process going into it. I think if it's a home and an away leg, it makes the regular season even less relevant than it does because, home and away, somebody said the home team, whoever's the home team on the second leg is an advantage, not nearly the advantage of a single elimination. Stepping back, the 3-game series is the stupidest thing ever.
100%.
And the reason is because so much MLS revenue is game day ticket sales. They wanted to give every team in the playoffs an excuse to be able to sell tickets to their home fans to get a little extra money. But then I think to that point, they said, well, a home and an away leg doesn't give the advantage of the higher seeded team. So that's why they put the third game as my guess on it. And I think that is correct. And I see in the chat somebody put the Whitecaps, the team we've played like 12 times in the last 2 years because of this. And that's a whole other thing with this 3-game is we're in 2 years into this, we're getting fatigue on certain teams. I'm sure in the East you guys are as well. And I think with the Leagues Cup as well, this is only going to get worse.
Well, and it's funny you say that. I guess we can get off topic just for a second. Now, there was a report that came out that the Leagues Cup has been announced that it will be played on weekdays, that the leagues will not be stopping play for the Leagues Cup this season. So, and they're going to do it in a way where we kind of guarantee that you're going to see more Liga MX matchups rather than constantly having the MLS play against the MLS and vice versa. So that is going to come into play. And I'm really interested on Thursday when the schedule releases to see how that schedule looks, since we won't have that stop and play in August.
I bet you they don't have it on there at all.
No, they won't. But usually you have that big gap in the schedule, right? From the end of July till the end of August. So I guess you'll see games throughout the summer, which will be interesting. Eric, Leagues Cup, do you like the changes? 18 teams participating from MLS and Liga MX, and the fact that now it's going to be weekday games, kind of like the tournaments over there in Europe.
There's so much that I like about the Leagues Cup.
Me too.
I've always thought is a really fun tournament. But again, like when you're in the Leagues Cup and you basically just play like, I think we played like 4 MLS teams and 1 Liga MX team in the first round, and that was pretty much it. Like, what's the point? Like, you're just playing the same MLS teams over and over and over again. So, I do think personally that, again, with the fatigue of people playing, I think even more people are going to opt out. I don't know how the tickets work for you guys, but for us, basically, we're included in things like Leagues Cup, Open Cup, playoffs, unless we opt out. And I think this next year, there's going to be even like the first year, not a ton of people opted out. The last year, much more people opted out. And I think this next year, even more people are opting out, especially depending on who we play. You know, and in our case, again, because I know LAFC, if you look at Champions League, we drew Colorado Rapids for our first round, and then we play Columbus on the bye. And then if we get through that, the winner of that probably plays Miami. So it's like the first three rounds of this is just all MLS teams again. And it's like, man, you know, a couple of years ago, we went to Alajuelense and we had 900 fans in Alajuelense completely taking over a stand. You know, it's like we want to go travel to exotic countries south of here and go watch some games. And so if the Leagues Cup is going to basically start matching it up, it definitely needs to be reformatted from how it is. And if they're going to take, I think they were saying like 18 MX teams and 18 MLS teams, and just start it off like that way, so it's much more interleague play, it's going to help the tournament. If it continues to be Liga MX versus MX and MLS versus MLS, people are going to lose interest and they're not going to want to pay premium prices for these tickets, which we're paying.
I will tell you that I think that all the Leagues Cup games being played on weekdays is gonna, at least for me, I can't go on weekdays. It's so hard for me to make it out to a weekday game that it's gonna be hard. But in Miami, they make you just opt into everything. Tommy, how you feeling about Leagues Cup?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say with Leagues Cup, the picture that went viral was Mercedes-Benz Stadium completely empty for a Leagues Cup game. I think it was on a Friday against DC United. Nobody wants to play DC United 3 times. Nobody ever does. Who wants to play Vancouver 3 times? Nobody. Like, but that's what we have to keep dealing with, right? 12. It's okay. Like, it's a fun thing, but I'm going to forget about it. Like, if it's not in this group, right? Like, it's back-to-back weeks, and it's just something that's just, like, kind of there. I just don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, it's the NBA Cup.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, but that's so stupid.
But there's no difference.
Well, you know what? And I don't want to get into the NBA talk too much, but real quick, I think the fact that they moved it to Las Vegas for the semifinals and the final does give it a little more, like, I was interested. I was like, I'm going to watch Atlanta, Milwaukee, because it's randomly in Las Vegas. They shut down the rest of the league for these 2 days. I think it gave it some meaning. But I'm not a big fan of it either. I saw Tank in the chat. He put that Leagues Cup is already a failed experiment. I disagree. I do think it needs some modifications. You think that it's a failed experiment, Eric?
No. It's a good ambition, and I think MLS and Liga MX, when they play each other, it's really interesting, and I think it's interesting on both sides. I think the leagues should play each other more. I'd like to see even more of the good sides in Central America have opportunities to play in this as well. There's a lot of teams in.
But then it would become the Champions Cup.
No, I know. And kind of where I'm going with this, since you're already now scaling down the teams of that, you're scaling down the teams in the U.S. Open Cup. Why don't you look at all 3 of these together and say, okay, the Champions League teams aren't necessarily going to play Leagues Cup because they're going to play this tournament, and that's going to kind of ease it up on them. The the scheduling might need to put a little more of that into the summer period, if that's possible. I don't know with Liga MX's schedule if that necessarily works there either. And then say, okay, the team's not in there, you're into the Leagues Cup, and and then you can have teams from the Leagues Cup you somehow put the Open Cup in there as well. So like the teams that are not good enough to make Leagues Cup, those are your Open Cup teams, and your teams that aren't in the Champions League but are better MLS teams, they're in the Leagues Cup. And like, even this all up, I think something like that, it could work similar to how Europe has teams kind of like crash into the Europa League from the Champions League. Something more like that, I think, could work and be much more sustainable.
And I think you just got done saying it. I think that is where they're going with it, right? You top 4 make it to Champions League, the next few make it to Europa League. I think that that's where they're going. Look, you got Miami and Seattle in the Champions Cup. Then you have 18 teams in the Leagues Cup. That's 20 teams, and then you have 10 teams left over. Put those 10 in the U.S. Open Cup, and I don't know if you make everybody happy, but you kind of spread out the wealth. Tommy, do you think Leagues Cup is a failed experiment?
I think they've got chances to grow with it, and I like that they're changing it, right? Everybody just hates that it's in the U.S., right? So if you want to grow it, it's not just about America. It's about growing it everywhere. Got to make it interesting. Got to get different environments in there. That would be cool. But I'll tell you, if Miami didn't win it year one, like I think you say it's a failure because people were watching. That was like Messi's, right? His inclusion
Yeah, it definitely
into
helped.
the league.
Cruz Azul game, like to lead it off, was insane.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah,
It's like
definitely
just
helped.
imagine not having that, right? Let's just imagine, DC United makes a run. Sorry, DC United people, but like they make a huge run, right? And they're in the finals.
It could have been Nashville versus Philly because we played Philly right before the final. It could have been Nashville Philly, which would have been terrible.
Right. But they got their dream, right? Messi comes in and he wins that. Like that made everybody watch that game. That made people, download and subscribe to Apple TV.
But this is the thing that everybody always says, right? At least U.S. Open Cup has history. That's fine. I get it.
Got to create history.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. I get that it has history, but you can't hate on something. It just got started. Like give it a chance. Like when you're currently watching a U.S. Open Cup game and a Leagues Cup game, at least for me personally, the quality of the teams is better in the Leagues Cup. And even the production is better in Leagues Cup. When I watched some Open Cup games on YouTube like 2-3 years ago, it was terrible. I was like, how is this a professional league? Like, they should improve the Open Cup. I think that with the history, yeah, sure, keep it and improve it. But it's not improved at the moment. Like, I'm not sad about not watching games on YouTube.
Yeah.
Bleacher Report?
Open Cup is like, the whole way it's ran is really in a weird place because it's the one tournament that's basically run by U.S. Soccer. And U.S. Soccer, as far as I can tell, and like I've kind of studied their financial reports that they put out annually, like they don't make money off of Open Cup and Leagues Cup. Like they make money off the U.S. men's national team. And so basically their whole goal with the Open Cup is to not lose money at it. And then when you have these like USL teams playing MLS teams in some of these stadiums that only fit like 5,000 to 6,000 people, there's no way for a lot of the MLS teams to, they all play this at a loss of money and they play on horrible fields. And so I can see where they're coming from, not being psyched in the tournament. And U.S. Soccer is looking at this like, we ain't losing any money. And they're probably the only entity that doesn't lose money in this tournament. I think everybody else who has anything to do with it, they're being asked to continuously like operate it at a loss, which it doesn't work forever either. And so to me, I think a lot of it is just, I think U.S. Soccer needs to figure out how to make this better, but I just don't know if there's any appetite. They just don't really care about it. It's not one of their priorities.
No, we're having a hard enough time filling up stadiums on a regular basis. You're not filling them up to watch. I know Tank said in the comments that the Miami Derby is entertaining. I don't give a shit about watching Inter Miami versus Miami FC. I can't name a Miami FC player. I can't name their coach. I can't name their mascot. I can't name. Well, I do know where they play, but like, I don't care about that. Tommy, are you missing your Atlanta versus Alabama Birmingham games?
No. I think it's fun when you get those stories, right? And unfortunately, Atlanta, they were one of those stories. Indy 11 beat Atlanta United in the quarterfinals, I think. And yeah, it was disappointing. They're okay, but like you said, the presentation's absolutely terrible. This year, U.S. Soccer made you log in. You had to log in to get the link to be able to go in. Like, they're so desperate for anything. Like, we'll just take your information. That's all we want out of this game. Just get your information, and we're good there. I don't know. I think if they tier it, then that's more than fine. Give everyone a little something extra to look forward to, one extra trophy, and call it a day.
Look, if they keep the Open Cup and they fix it up, I don't mind. Like,
let's fix it up though.
Put it on Apple TV for one.
You're right. Yeah. But they got to give U.S. soccer money.
Exactly,
I assume, to do
and
that.
that's where it gets complicated. But that's what I mean when you say what do I mean by fix it up? Fix the production value at least at a bare minimum. Give me that. Make it easier to access. And Peach is asking, but the gate sales would be great for Miami FC. I don't have it. Peaches, if you join the Battered Herons tomorrow night, I'll put up a couple pictures that I have from an Inter Miami FC game. Now, granted, Miami FC probably only brings like a couple, I don't know, maybe 100 people per game, 200, and there was maybe 1,000 there, but it still looks like an empty stadium. Like people aren't interested in the Open Cup. They're interested in complaining about not having it, but they're not interested in actually attending it, unfortunately. Maybe when it gets to the finals, they get more interested.
Well, what round? Like, because like they joined
Semifinals.
Right?
Semifinals.
Right. They should join earlier, but I mean, like, when should they join? Right?
Oh, you mean the MLS teams?
Well, no. When did they start putting them on Apple TV? I think they did the semifinals this year.
Yeah, and before that, they had it on the U.S. soccer website, which was good because if you remember last year, you'd have to look to some crazy YouTube and Twitter streams that were
Bleacher Report.
And that was it. Like most of them you couldn't even get, and especially a lot of the USL and third division, like those stadiums were dead too. You know, one of the games I went to, I think it was last year, or the year before, but LAFC played Monterey Bay, which is a great little stadium, 7,000 people. Along the point of Miami FC, like it's great gate for them. Stadium holds 7,000 people. You know, about $35 a ticket. Most USL games are 35 to 25 a ticket, which is a great bargain if you're anywhere near a USL city. But that's $245K for that game. And then you got to look into what's the MLS player's salary making. Like a cut of that gate has to go to the visiting team as well. You know, like that's part of it. So when you chop that at the end, it's like this is what you're dealing with for a professional team to come in, all their travel expenses, all their people, you know. Like they're not making that nut.
Yeah, I respect the history. Brooklyn FC was the first ever U.S. Open Cup champ. Shout out to Brooklyn FC, which is coming back. They're going to come back. They're going to join USL in I think 2026. So look, I get it. I respect it. I prefer to take a step up, but maybe they're going to keep working on it. I think as the sport in this country grows, all the tournaments need to grow with it. But back to the tournament at hand. MLS playoffs. We're at 18 teams, 60%. What do you think would be a better number of teams making it? I'll tell you, I go 6 in each conference, which I still think is a lot. But if you could give me 6, I would rather 4. The top 4 should make it, honestly. Give me 8 playoff teams, 4 from the East, 4 from the West. 8 teams and then have them duke it out. That's what I think. Or make it 5 in each and then have the wild card game or whatnot. Something like that. I think 18 is way too much. Eric, what do you think? Do you think that 18 is way too much?
Yeah, I go back to 2022 and I believe it's 7 teams with the top one getting a bye. So you have the 6th play and then the lowest seed game jumps in against whoever had the bye. And I'd really shorten the games out again. You know, all the games we played 3 to 4 days from each other with 1 week off going into the cup at the end.
Look, I'm with you on that because the playoffs started in mid-October. There's no reason that it should be ending the first week of December. It's way too long.
The window,
wrap it up before the international break too.
Yeah,
they got to do something. Tommy. 18 teams right now. How many would you have it in your perfect world?
I was looking at the standings to see like who you'd miss, right? Like, is there anyone out there? And I understand Atlanta won a series, but that was very lucky. I think the 6 is more than fine. You cut that line. There's 1 or 2 teams that are fighting that have a chance, right, to make an upset or two.
These are the teams that you would have missed this year if you just go top 6. You would have missed Atlanta. Fuck them. You would have missed Montreal. And you would have missed the New York Red Bulls.
I don't like
which made the final. Which is why everybody loves the playoffs.
Yeah. It's kind of a whole other season.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
But then if you don't win, like Solana would be throwing parades, right? If they won an MLS Cup, but they didn't, so now it's stupid, right? Everyone likes it until they don't, right? Like that's
Right.
usually how things work. And people are like, all right, I'm pumped. I'm sure there were a ton of Miami fans that were really excited for the playoffs. And then you lose and you say, fuck that. I don't want that, right? Like you gotta just go with the best overall record. We won. We're the champions. And it's just not how it works, and it upsets people.
You know, the Shield Cup double on average happens every 6 years. It's every 6 years it gets won. So I think in all the league history, it's been like five or six of them. So it is what it is. It's a tough thing, but yeah, the cup's always got to be the champion.
No, I'm with you. And like I said, 18 is too much. Do I understand why they do it? Yes, I do understand why they do it, because you keep fan bases interested. Because if my team has absolutely no chance at the playoffs and it's mid-September, I'm probably using that money to go watch the local NFL team, the NBA starting soon, the NHL starting soon. I'm not going to go waste my money on an MLS team that has absolutely no chance anymore of making the playoffs. So I get why they do it, but I do think it waters down the point of the actual regular season, much like Eric said. And if you take away home field advantage, it ruins it also. Do you think anything's going to change?
I don't think it's going to change next year, but I do think that Leagues Cup this next year is going to show that it absolutely has to change. And it's funny, one prediction I made when it first started, because I knew all the games were played here, I said they're going to do it for 2 years because I knew the Messi deal was 2 years. And I was like, after the Messi deal, they're going to go both places, because I think at the time with the ticket sales, MLS spent all this money to bring Messi in, and they weren't about to go give another league these ticket sales when they needed to recoup their costs. So I always thought, like, once he's gone, they're going to do it more of a back and forth tournament, which it really needs to be.
Messi's here for another 2 years, by the way.
Yeah. But I think when he first signed, they didn't know that he was going to be there for 4 years. I think they bet that he was going to be there for 2 years. So I think on the third year, they're going to be, I think they will be playing some of these games down in Mexico, which they should. But I always thought, like, when it started those 2 years, they were going to recoup all that money in ticket sales. And you see it, they go to 70,000 person stadiums on his games. So it makes sense. Like, economically, when you understand how this league makes its money, it makes a lot of sense. But if they don't change the Leagues Cup will die as it is.
I 100% agree with you on that point. Real quick, Tank. Danny won't share a bombilla with Messi. Tank, I would not. I wouldn't share that with anyone. Eric, would you share a straw with Messi?
A straw?
Yeah, like drinking out of the same. Like, I got a straw here. Here, Messi, drink out of my straw.
Well, I wouldn't do that with every footballer, but Messi seems like he's good, clean living. So I think
absolutely not. I am not sharing a straw with anybody.
No way.
No?
And I know that might be a little hypocritical for some people that do the whole puff pass thing, but I would never ever share a straw with anybody. I don't care if it's
COVID
Messi.
ruined me. COVID destroyed my life, man. I got sanitizer with me all the time. Oh, you wanna take a smoke out of my thing? Bring your own, man.
What kind of trap question did you just give me? Like, would you share a straw with Messi? I thought this was like a metaphor for some greater thing, and I was like, he seems like a pretty clean fella. So
it's a legit, because the thing is,
there's some nasty footballers out there that I'm like, man,
who's Messi? Wait,
Jesus are in that.
Throw some names. No, hold on, Danny. Throw some names out there who you think the disgusting ones are.
Danny or me?
You were the one that said there's some gross people out there.
I wouldn't share a straw with Neymar. That dude way too much. He looks like he's partying a bit too much.
I guarantee you, Eric would share one with Vela.
Vela looks like a good, wholesome guy too. You know what I mean? Like I think if the dude's not like going to the nightclubs like every weekend and, doing the bottle service and then having the wild parties in the hotel rooms at 3 a.m., which some soccer players are known, those guys, I ain't touching a straw from them. But, the ones that have a good home life and feel like, I was like,
nah, I'm not sharing a straw with anybody, man.
Straw, buddy. Like, okay.
No way. I'm not doing it. And in case anybody's wondering where this came from, and I know you're out in LA.
I don't know where this came from. So,
all right. So it's into Miami, right? Very South American influence now. Messi walks around with what's called mate, right? It's a small cup, right, with the tea, and they have a straw with they call it bombilla. And one time on our Battered Hair On show, we were talking about the fact that he was walking in with Luis Suarez, and then he passed it over to Luis Suarez, took a sip out of the same bombilla, and then passed it right back, took another sip. And I said, I don't know why they do that. That's disgusting. And then the chat, Solana, and everybody was like, what is wrong with you? That's what you do. When you're boys, you share bombillas.
You don't get superpowers from it. It's like you don't get Messi's power. This isn't Space Jam or anything. Like that doesn't
Maybe
happen.
You do. Look, if I haven't seen Messi share with anybody else than Luis Suarez. Like he's not giving it to Robert Taylor. Like Robert Taylor doesn't get to sip out of his straw. So maybe there is some superpowers there.
But we got to go back a minute. Eric basically told us the judgment of how he would drink out of someone else's straw is if it looks they have STDs. If they have an STD, I ain't drinking out of it, man. You're a good-looking dude, and you look like you party. You got an STD, I ain't drinking out of that, man.
Yeah, well, I can see that. Well, I don't even know where I was going before that. I'm sorry, Tank completely threw off the show.
Playoffs. We were still in playoffs.
Yeah, I was asking something about the playoffs. I don't know, the number of teams or something.
Yeah, I think we finished with that. But
yeah.
Well, what do you think caused the? Sorry, I'm taking hosting duties now.
No, go for it.
Full in there. So I'm going to concentrate here. Why do you think the ratings were so bad? Considering it's got two of the biggest markets, maybe not the biggest market for that specific team,
the final,
but huge. Yeah, the final. The two, LA, New York, any league. I don't care what it is. NHL, NBA, MLB. You have LA versus New York. Your ratings are going through the roof.
I think because they did it a week late. Conference championships were that Saturday, were they not?
That's where I was, actually. So yeah.
There you go. Conference championships were that Saturday, which I think is a first big misstep. Second of all, I think people are overrating the fact that the Red Bulls represent New York. NYCFC took a lot of that fan base because they actually play in New York City. The Red Bulls are thought of more as an OG team when they were the Metro Stars, but they're more New Jersey, even though New York, New Jersey, whatnot. I don't think that they have as big of a hold on that NYC fan base or that viewership. So I think that those two things are there. And three, I've seen the numbers people are throwing out. Shout out to MLS Moves that he's been throwing out a lot of those numbers. I'm actually going to have him on the show on Tuesday.
He's all over the place. He's pissed.
I'm going to have him on the show on Tuesday. We're going to talk about this. But he's throwing out the numbers of Fox. But like, I didn't watch it on Fox. I watched it on Apple TV. Most people watch it on Apple TV. So of course that the numbers are going to look a little skewed when you compare it to Fox. So I think that's why viewership might have taken a hit a bit from. And what was it the year before? It was Columbus and
LA
FC.
I think that if I remember, that was around 1.2 million viewers total, 1.4 in there. And the year before the LAFC Philadelphia, before the Apple deal, that was like 2.1 million and the highest rated final they've had.
Ooh, and this is a great comment here by Mr. Krabs. It wasn't LA versus New York. It was Carson versus New Jersey.
See, that's why I like Mr. Krabs.
On the money.
Yeah.
On the money.
Yeah, so I don't know what's up with this final. Like, the LAFC homer side of me wants to say because, Carson lost all their fans to us. So they really don't have a lot of fans left to tune in. Although, to be fair, they mostly were at the game. They weren't really tuning into their TV. But the number's pretty horrible. I don't know in that, like.
But we don't know the number because Apple
we don't know the Apple number. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's hard to speculate when you don't know the biggest I mean, the Apple numbers can be bigger than everybody else's number. And when you don't have the biggest number of the equation, it makes it really hard.
If Messi would have played, it would have been crazy numbers, though. So, I mean, if that's what they're relying on, like that's the only thing that could have possibly changed that, or make it. What other final would have given you something bigger if it's not Messi or Miami? LAFC.
I mean, Atlanta's got a big fan base.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't know if Orlando would have pulled a lot of people. I think
it would have been worse. And not trying to joke on Orlando.
No.
I think it'd be way worse.
I think Columbus might have done good numbers just because everybody wants to see Columbus play. I think that they've become one of those teams that everybody's interested in seeing. But when you hear and maybe this is the downfall to having so many teams make it. When you hear that the Red Bulls made it and they're like the 7th team, that they weren't that great. People really weren't excited. People kind of figured Galaxy are going to kick their ass and move on, even though it ended up being a better game. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say that I don't think it has anything to do with any of what you guys said. I think that that this league is slowly becoming forgotten. And I think there's two arguments here, because you said you're going to talk to MLS Moves guy, because he's got one side of the argument. His side of the argument is for the league, right? Grow the league, get it better. That's all we want. We want this to be one of the biggest leagues in the world. But also the season pass and the deal was great for the fans, right? No blackouts, their own studio. You can listen to your home announcers, right? You could do all these things that ESPN didn't give you that type of attention. You got blacked out for all those games as well. It was hard to find. MLS had their website for a little bit, but you need something that is good for the league and it's good for the fans. And right now, I think it's just lopsided. It's all for the fans, which is why I understand why most people don't complain about it, right? Why complain about something that's working out so well? But yeah, I don't know. I think that they're going to have to figure something out here. So how many people watched it? Did they claim?
They just had the Fox numbers, I believe, and then Nielsen threw out some random numbers, but I don't know where Nielsen get their numbers from because Apple doesn't release their numbers. So
I wonder what the WNBA final did. It went to 7 games, right?
I believe is it 3 games?
Oh, 5. It's 5. It's 5. You're right.
WNBA, they shattered viewing records this year. They absolutely destroyed their previous numbers. But going into the MLS, it's part of it. I think that's interesting because there's 2 parts of the league. One is getting eyeballs on it, and I think a lot of the direction of where they get eyeballs are bringing guys in like Messi, Rumer Griezmann, Giroud comes in, Benteke, getting these older European guys, and I'll go further with Carson, who just won it. They for years they had Zlatan Ibrahimovic was their guy on their team. They and then they had Douglas Costa, Chicharito Hernandez, and they didn't do a single thing with them. Their team that won it this year, who was the big star on their team? They didn't have one. They had Gabriel Peck, up and coming young guy, Ricky Pooch, up and coming young guy who's chosen MLS, and they had Joseph Pansil, a Dutch league guy that. And they basically stormed it. Pardon?
Joveljic?
Yeah, and Joveljic. People say, oh, they got Marco Royce, but Royce was a luxury. Royce wasn't part of that team getting to where they were. And with no Royce on that team, you could still see him winning, So I think, to me, this is what I love about MLS. I loved it when LAFC was a bunch of, young guys. Now we got Lloris, Giroud, we're going to get Griezmann. People talk about Pogba. And I'm like, I don't want a team with a bunch of 40-year-olds on it. This formula doesn't win MLS. What wins MLS are young, hungry guys from the periphery, Eastern Europe, South America leagues, guys that aren't ready for the European jump, but they're young and hungry and churning these guys through. But none of them have big names. So do they draw the eyeballs to, what American soccer fans I want to tune in and see Gabriel Peck play, sort of people that maybe knew Vasco,
right.
This is kind of the dilemma it is for those of us that love the league. I think for our league to really be the best league, it is bringing in these young guys and turning them over. But part of getting the eyeballs brings in these sunsetting guys that mostly have trouble hacking it over here with few exceptions. Messi's obviously an exception to everything, but that kind of the point of the seeing guys go back to the sunsetting guy for the eyeballs and the bigger budgets to bring these guys. And it's like, man, I just want to see these young guys plow through it.
Do you think that going back to, let's say, hypothetically, let's say they opted out of their contract somehow and next season was back on ESPN, do you really think that would help everything grow? I personally don't. ESPN never mentions the MLS. Do you really think that would help? They might promote better, like for Messi games. Messi games might get promoted a little better.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN doesn't touch MLS at all. They used to throw them in there just for the friendly, top 10, right, on occasion, just because they had the contract. But I've been saying this for a while. I mean, people know that I podcast for Atlanta United all the time, and I get asked frequently, how do you watch that MLS? I don't hang out with just grandmas, why I did that voice.
That's what it sounded,
yeah. Yeah. But like people ask me, like, where's MLS? Like, where do you watch MLS? And like, think about it. Do you just go, like, I don't know if you go out to bars or restaurants a lot, but have you ever gone out and just been like, oh, look, MLS is on TV? Because I know that, and the reason why I asked the WNBA was specifically because I've been on plenty of bars, and it wasn't just Caitlin Clark, but it's on ESPN every other day. UPN, like you have it everywhere here. And the people that don't follow the league joke around saying, where is it? I never see it anywhere. And it's very rarely, right? You have a couple Fox games here and there that they threw on, which they didn't even send their announcers out to the stadiums, which is wild. But like still, like you can't see MLS in the wild. So if you don't see it in the wild and you're not diehard like we are, or even a casual, do you even notice that it's missing?
No, that's true. That's true. Sports bars don't really have Apple TV on their stuff. It's always like the networks and, they buy like a package, like a direct TV package or whatever.
Do you think that the reason that it's preferred to be on Apple TV is because they want to grow the eyes worldwide? Because, I mean, I think that it has become a little more popular across obviously Messi helps with that, but I think people, Messi's there. Oh, let's see how Giroud is doing over there in LA. Let's see how I'm blanking on another big name that maybe somewhere else. But now it's so accessible to the world that maybe that counteracts the bars and the people that aren't watching just by accident when they're flipping through the channels.
My personal kind of like tinfoil hat or rabbit hole, or my speculation on this whole Apple deal is that Apple wants to get into sports broadcasting. They have a streaming platform, but sports broadcasting isn't something they do. And I think, in some ways, MLS, if you compare it to other professional sports league, is a discount to get into. You can buy an MLS ticket for half of the price of an NHL ticket, a third of the price of an NBA ticket, and an eighth of the price of an NFL ticket. So it's like if you're not going to splash like $800 for a game, it's like MLS is there. So I think for sports leagues, for Apple looked at this, if they want to develop like their streaming platform for sports, and some of the features they have is great, such as like clicking on the local radio announcer, there's all kinds of little like bells and whistles they've added in there, which are revolutionary to sports streaming. And I think they look at it as their plans are on bigger leagues in the future. And I think they just want to take MLS and kind of dial it in. That's their like guinea pig to get their program going. When Apple paid this deal, they were flush with cash. And so I think for them and a company that size, like the size of this deal wasn't anywhere near. I think it was probably a bargain for them as well, that they can take a league like this and they can work on like how they want to present a sports league to viewers, and maybe they're going to go for Premier League, and when the NBC deal runs out in like 2028, maybe they're going to take a shot at that, or maybe they're going to take a shot at another league. And now they kind of know what they're doing, and they're going to duplicate kind of what they've done with Apple TV to do that. The last thing that I like about it, if you all remember with the ESPN, is, do you remember going to like watch your team play, and meanwhile it was like Arkansas college baseball versus Oklahoma college baseball, and it goes to extra innings, and so they're not cutting the MLS game because you got to watch them go through the 12th inning, and by the time the game
ESPN too.
25
Women's
minutes.
college basketball it was. I remember.
Yeah, that too. I've also seen it with college baseball, but like that was the other thing too. And there was in 2022, I watch LAFC away games. Some of them streamed on Twitter, some were on ESPN, some were on Fox Soccer, some were on Bally Sports, which is like this weird baseball thing you have to buy. Like those games, I had to go to a bar to watch. There was no other way to watch it. And so like there was like 5 different platforms to catch an LAFC away game in market in Los Angeles that year. And that, well, for me, I was just like, this is completely insane. And I think some of the memories of that on people who complain about the Apple deal, maybe they didn't experience like going through these hoops just to watch your team play an away game.
Exactly. You could pull it up on your phone if you want, and you don't know this and you're listening. You can give your login to a friend. They could log in and watch it as well. I've had 4 people watching on my account before. Like, it's great that they have that. Like, everything is friendly to the consumer of this. It's just, how do you get more? How do you get new eyes on that, right? And I imagine it's a little bit different when you live in an MLS town and there's like certain bars that dedicate themselves to having Apple TV. But as you've seen, another example, you've seen the NFL, right? You go out to a bar, they're like, we don't have Peacock, right? We don't have Amazon. Like this Christmas, if you wanted to go out somewhere, I know there's not places open. Do you have Netflix? Can you log into your Netflix account? Like these are things that are happening that are pissing fans off in other leagues, that you're taking it away so that people don't have access to it, or that it's not out and so you could just go out somewhere. And that's annoying to them.
Yeah. So you guys think that ESPN would help to go back to ESPN, Tommy?
For the league, because I separated it into 2
For
worlds for me. For the league, I think it is better.
For growth.
Yes.
Okay. And Eric, you agree?
No, I take a contrary position.
Mm-hmm.
I think Apple TV really is there for like the MLS enthusiasts that are there. And if you're going to make the diehards happy or you're going to make the casuals happy, I think for any business like you, go for the diehards.
But you're not growing your business, which I think that becomes the problem here, right?
I think there is growth. It's just the thing is, you guys want to take the blue pill, right? You want the Viagra. You want this thing to grow quickly. I think it's going to be a slow build, and I understand because Messi's here, everybody's like, that's it, World Cup 2026. This is the chance. Make sure take that blue pill. Let's get hard quick. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think that it's going to be a slow build. They're doing it in a way where they don't want to do anything that they regret later.
When's the contract until?
Wasn't it 10 years?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. It was a long contract.
And I think there's like an opt-out side. At least MLS Moves constantly talks about that there's an opt-out for both sides. It's just they have to figure out a way. And like the playoffs, like looking at the playoff format, like your first big game, right? I think they offered game 1 for free, right?
What?
On MLS only.
Yeah, the Rapids.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Game 1 against us in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was everywhere. It was like at Apple stores, at TikTok. But that's the thing, though. They gave games to FS2, or maybe or FS1, one of those channels. They gave a few playoff games to. I'm sorry. I understand that Apple TV is where you throw it. But if you really want to get eyes on the league, you throw Messi in the playoffs, probably where he should dominate, right? And do some crazy stuff and score a hat trick on TV so everyone can watch.
You know what?
Mr. Krabs, I'm not sure what blue pill is in the Matrix. That's not the blue pill I was talking about.
I thought that's what you were talking about too.
No, I was talking about Viagra.
I've never seen the Matrix either.
I was talking about Viagra.
I will say with the growth, I agree with you, Daniel. The growth as it's been going, I think is totally.
It's already growing. Yeah, already growing.
And all of us like Tommy, your team started in 2017, right? 1 year before LAFC did. I don't know how much MLS you were into before that, but if you look at this league in 2017 and 2018 when we came in, where it is now is it's came a long way in just those 7-8 years of where it was. And if it takes this much of a jump in another 7-8 years, like that, I think that's totally fine. And when you look at the history of the NASL and how it expanded too fast and then collapsed and then basically under its own weight went bankrupt, none of us want to see MLS do that. And I think to just throw money at something and expand it super fast when it's not ready to do that. I think it would just be a huge mistake, and it would expose a lot of risk to the league. And I just don't think there's any reason that we have to all of a sudden like triple the spending on payrolls on soccer teams. Like it'd be just too much of a vanity move, and it doesn't seem sustainable at all to me.
I do want to increase the salary, but I also people are like, that's it, just get rid of it so you can compete with the Real Madrids of the world. Like, no, I like the parity in this league. I don't think that they should get rid of the salary cap.
Yeah, and the other thing is like when they raise a salary, they raise the ticket prices, because that's where the lion's share of the revenue of this league is ticket prices. If they double the salary cap, maybe they don't double the ticket prices, but those ticket prices are going to go up 30, 40%. And, are people in the stands going to be, are they going to start canceling their tickets if it goes up 40% or 30%, in 1 year? This is a valid question as well.
I tried, and it was a quick Google search, so I'm sure that you can find the answer if you take a deeper dive. But I just looked to see if there's an opt-out of the deal, and what pops up immediately is that Apple is allowed to walk away if a certain number of subscribers have not added MLS Season Pass within a set time frame. Now, that is from March 2023, before Messi. I'm assuming that whatever that number was, if they haven't hit it, it's getting close, because I'm sure there was a huge spike once Messi joined Miami last year. All right. Look, I think that 10 years is too long, but I do think that even before the Apple deal, before Messi arrived, I thought that the league was growing, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And I think it's sped up a bit. I think people are a little anxious because they see the World Cup coming, so they want to see this be one of the top leagues in the next 2-3 years. It's not going to happen. It's going to keep growing, though, and hopefully a couple of changes do happen. But I think that the drastic changes that some people want to make, I think it's a little much.
Well, and just real quick, people say, well, they give free games on Apple, right? It's cool if you have an iPhone, right? But how many people that don't have an iPhone, don't have Apple, have the Apple app on their, I don't even know if you can download it on Android. I assume you can. Or have it on your Xbox or your PlayStation. What makes you think that you need to go do it? And I understand there's some TV shows out there, like Ted Lasso, obviously a big one. But still, like just random people now. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of great stuff on Apple TV at the moment. What makes you think, I should download the Apple app and see what's on? Oh, MLS is on. Cool. I'll watch that. I just don't think that happens enough. But it happens every day. There's just a kid at a bar where his dad's getting drunk, and he's just watching TV and sees a great soccer game on, says Messi, and he's the next Messi of America.
There you go.
Sitting watching his dad get drunk in the bar.
All right. So obviously, we all think there needs to be changes. We all like the playoffs, and the league is growing. Maybe not as fast as some other people want, but I think it's going to continue to grow. And we'll see. I don't see many changes to the playoffs coming anytime soon, at least, though.
No.
Agree. No. They just changed it. They can't change it again.
Right. I would love them to, though. All right. I think that's about it. I just wanted to talk playoffs. Eric, do you have any final thoughts? And let everybody know where they can find you.
Man, not much final thoughts. I'm just waiting for more offseason news and transfers. There's a whole laundry list of players that I hope to see my beloved LAFC sign soon, and look how we're going to tackle the next season, because we got a lot of roster holes, as I'm sure we all do. Atlanta's got a coaching hole that I'm super excited to see how they fill. Man, got to be one of the most prime coaching positions in the league that's open right now. But digressing, this is where I'm supposed to go. But you can find me. I contribute occasionally to Territorios MLS. Otherwise, just look for me on Twitter as Eric Holstrom, and that's that.
And he's a battered regular.
I'm a battered regular. Yes, I'm battered all the time.
Don't make it so dirty like that. It's weird.
You're asking me about sharing straws with people, and then I stepped in that somehow.
We know what you're into, Eric. We know what you're into.
As long as it's not Neymar, he's down for it.
That's what I'm into.
Tommy, any final thoughts?
Just make it better for everyone, right? And be able to give everyone access to it. Tommy, ATL 96, Scarves and Spikes. We're giving away a bunch of stuff on Wednesday, not just Atlanta stuff. Some MLS gift cards for our holiday party. Join us.
Okay.
It's gonna be. I don't. My
That
job isn't
Patreon money
having.
coming in strong.
Huh? No, I don't know what it is. We would. I figure my company's not having a Christmas party, so we'll have a Christmas party on the podcast. So come join
Very
us.
cool.
And if you have either one of you seen Home Alone 3?
I have, I believe.
What
Home
grade
Alone
do you
2
give
still
it?
the best.
Would you get A through F?
A through F? I don't know, a C? It wasn't horrible, but
I gave it an A plus, but whatever.
Home
How's
Alone
that kid
3?
keep getting left home alone? You think they'd learn their
It's a new
lesson?
kid.
No, it's
he
a
had
new
chickenpox.
kid.
Oh, okay.
And he beat Spy. Spoiler. Sorry, spoiler. In case you want to watch it. It's on Disney Plus, everyone. Also Hulu.
The kids and I were actually counting them the other day. We're like, how is there 5 of these? Or I think it might even be 6 at this point. But yeah, I give it a C. Maybe C plus. Like, it's not as bad as you would think, but Home Alone 2 is still my favorite.
Well, join our holiday party. That was the whole point of it. Home Alone 3 is the best movie.
All right, and thank you guys for jumping on talking playoffs. We'll be back on Tuesday with MLS moves. I guess want to talk about the season as a whole and his takes on just Apple TV deal, because he thinks it's the worst thing in the world. So I'm sure that's going to be an interesting conversation. And final thoughts real quick on Die Hard. I finally gave this movie a chance last week because everybody talks about how it's a Christmas movie. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. My wife
You
and I.
never saw that?
Not the
I
first one.
never saw it. I've never
part
seen
2.
it.
You never seen it? I saw part 2 with Samuel L. Jackson. And I thought that was a good movie.
Isn't Alan Rickman one of the greatest villains of all time in that movie?
I couldn't sit through the whole movie.
Really? It was that bad?
I thought it was boring.
Okay.
I
I think we're getting judged a lot here, Danny.
I know. You see Eric's face?
I don't know if he's looking at you or me.
Oh,
I couldn't sit through the whole movie.
I think it's just
couldn't
eyes
sit
of
through the whole movie.
disappointment.
No.
Yeah, oh, I'm a Gen Xer here. Like, like I grew up. I think when that movie came out, I was like 7 or 8 years old. It was awesome.
No, like I like part 2. I don't know why I had never watched part 1, but I watched part 2. I like part 2. But man, that first one just randomly, I don't know if you care about spoilers, randomly shows up at a Christmas party where just randomly this crazy heist is happening and he's got no shoes on and he's just taking everybody out. It's like, what the hell am I?
That's John Wick. That's
You
the
know
whole
what's the best
plot
part?
of John Wick.
Carl Winslow was my favorite part of that movie, though. The fact that Carl Winslow is a part of it. The cop, for those of you that remember Family Matters.
What's better, John Wick or Die Hard 1?
I've never watched John Wick.
Ugh, I didn't like it.
I'm a bad person to ask, but because I'm not a big action movies guy.
All right,
Have you ever seen Terminator 2?
Yes, awesome. That is an action movie.
You like that, and you didn't like Die Hard.
No.
What about Lethal Weapon 1 and
Wait, are there robots in Die Hard that kill people?
I haven't seen Lethal Weapon in forever. I might have been a little kid the last time I saw it. I can't even remember, but I remember watching it.
All right.
I remember watching it, but that one I can't remember. I don't remember if I liked it or not.
We
Danny
need to have
Glover.
a whole like battered 80s movie fans show.
No, we've been talking about just having just a random battered just show where we just talk about just random things. But my wife looks at me whenever I bring up the fact about starting another show, and she raises an eyebrow. So I kind of put it back in the holster.
She
But
doesn't want a wrestling podcast?
No, it's so many ideas. They want Disney Pocket. They want a bunch of stuff. Anyway,
all right. What is your go-to Christmas movie every year, Daniel? Like what is a Christmas or show that like you have to see every year?
Okay, I'll give you this. It's funny because I was having this conversation today. Home Alone 2 is my go-to. Whenever we put up the Christmas tree, it's playing in the background. That's a tradition. If we're putting up the Christmas tree, Home Alone 2 needs to be in the background. That's my go-to Christmas movie. But recent Christmas movies. I saw 2 movies that actually were pretty good that people don't talk about. Claws, and for those people that like animated movies, which you got kids, really good
movie.
Very good movie. And then it was called Spirit on Apple TV. We can talk about Apple TV with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell.
Oh, that one.
Really good movie. I was not expecting it to be that good. Another good Christmas movie. So in case you guys are looking for anything Christmas related. What's yours, Eric? Is it Die Hard?
No. For me, it's the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer claymation with Burl Ives. Like that's the one I pretty much like every Christmas I have to watch that if it's on. Like I love that one. The Abominable Snowman and Hermes, who is an elf that wants to become a dentist, and it's good stuff.
The Grinch one is pretty good too. The animated Grinch one that came out a couple years ago.
A couple of years ago, or like the original from the 70s?
No, the 2018. I think it was the animated one was pretty good. No, the one from the 70s is brutal.
Really?
Yeah. Me and Eric are gonna have a hard time agreeing on entertainment. Yeah. Tommy, what's your go-to Home Alone? Oh, sorry, Home Alone 3.
No, it's not. Well, unfortunately, they have played this movie so many times that I think people hate it. But it was actually filmed here in Cleveland, The Christmas Story.
That's a great movie.
But it's just on 24 hours. Like, no movie. There's
literally
no movie.
Literally on 24 hours.
Yeah. The second one, though, is Harold and Kumar Christmas. If you haven't seen that one, it is a fantastic movie.
I've never seen that. I've only seen the White Castle.
Oh, yeah. They go to Guantanamo Bay, spoiler, and then they celebrate Christmas. And it has some great moments in it.
Okay, I'm going to have to check that out. I'm assuming that's something I can't watch with the kids.
No.
Okay. No. Okay. And shout out to my my co-host Chris. He'll watch anything with his kids. Say fuck it. So
I get that vibe. I get that vibe.
All right. I appreciate you guys jumping on with us. I appreciate everybody in the chat. If you're listening on audio, we appreciate you listening all the way to the end. Please leave us 5 stars, comment, review, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. And as always, like I just said in the chat, thank you guys for hanging out for the last hour and 7 minutes. I appreciate you guys. And there's a movie that just came out. The Rock plays Santa Claus. It's so bad.
It's okay.
It does look bad.
I started watching it yesterday because I realized that it's less than a month since it debuted in theaters. It was on Prime for some reason. So I put it on. He's not Santa Claus. He's Santa Claus' security guard. And I watched only half of it. Maybe I'll watch the rest of it later, but we'll see.
It was meh.
All right. You're a weird guy, Danny. Thank you. All right. I appreciate everybody, and we'll be back on Tuesday talking 2024 season with MLS moves. So until the next one, have a good one.